Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья.
Greetings, dear friends. Hello, Diana.
Greetings.
Нет слов,
There are no words to express my joy and gratitude to all those who are involved in the organization of the process, the filming process, and to all those who help the project to develop further.
Мы долго с вами не общались.
We haven't communicated with you for a long time, and frankly, we missed you.
Yes, dear friends, I'm very happy to have an opportunity to continue our communication with you and look together for the answers to your questions, the questions which help us to become freer, become happier, to build relationships that are filled with kindness and care for each other, with humaneness. And one of the questions that can help us in this aspect is the question, what is true care? Most of the time I hear it from parents and it sounds very sad. It sounds something like, what do we do wrong? Our child is nourished and dressed, he attends the best kindergarten, school, university, he participates in clubs and sections for his intellectual development. So we take care of him, but we see that our child is unhappy. We have a very uncomfortable and conflicted relationship. And here's the question, why? This is what parental care is most often focused on, right? On taking care of a child's body. I mean, his physical and intellectual development. At the same time, we very often see that our children are unhappy. So what makes a person happy? What makes a child happy? You know, today I would put this question a little bit differently. Where does happiness live? Happiness lives where love lives. Now let's recall that God is love. The house of God, the home of God, is actually the home of happiness and the home of love. This is the only home, the door to which is always open for each of us. And this door is our soul. When we forget about this, we lose connection with the soul. And then we cannot come to the happiness which we are looking for. The subject of care is really very big, and we could talk about it, a lot of things here, but today I'd like to focus on the following. Very often we focus on worries, we confuse worrying about another person, about a loved one, about our child, with caring for them. Just to make it clear, let's imagine. For example, you are sick. Okay, I'm sick. I'm suffering. I feel bad. To whom would we like to see? So whom would we like to see next to us? A person in anxiety, in tears, in worries, in such incredible excitement, you know, such a compassionate person. In fact, we're always very proud that we're compassionate. In other words, you suffer and a person next to you suffers too. And it turns out that we increase each other's suffering. Will it make us feel better? No, I don't think so, because these sufferings kind of intensify, and very few people consider compassion as a shared suffering. Now let's think more. What is suffering in general? Suffering is an emotion. It's an emotion of fear, an emotion of anger and sadness. So such highly negative emotions. So what happens then? That a person who is sick, who is suffering, who's in these negative emotions, and there is a person nearby in the same emotion, it turns out that we intensify each other's negativity. Is this really help? Is this care? And here is the answer. You know, very often parents say, we were all nervous, we were so worried about him. When a child was late for some reason, for example, he didn't work something, we were finding, we were so antsy, but he came home and sees our worries, he often reacts aggressively. He gets annoyed at our worries. But now we can understand why.
Yes, and another common answer is, did I ask you about it?
Yes, exactly. There is a reaction in response because parents are caring for him.
Just, you know, it's always been interested. Actually, it has been, and it's still interesting in such situation. After all, it is truly a person's choice to worry, to suffer, to be nervous, and to fuss. Well, let's take the basic thing you have started. When someone doesn't come home on time, I mean a child of any age, it's just crazy what starts them. They call everyone they can and raise the alarm, but a person is just, I don't know, just stuck in a traffic jam, right? It's quite common today. Or the phone died. But what's going on in a person's head? Everything is awful. And indeed, that's the most important and key thing. The person who wants to take care of someone actually chooses himself whether to be nervous, fussy, or to be calm and act in a reasonable way.
Sasha, you know what's the point here? Most people and most parents regard these worries as care or a manifestation of love. But friends, let's ponder over what I have just listed: suffering, anxiety, worries about someone. These are all emotions of fear, anger, and sadness. Just imagine your child comes back, thank God he's home, he's totally fine. But you start showering him with love? No, you start showering with him with this aggressive emotion, with emotion of fear. Of course, you get aggression in return. Is this clear now? Okay, let's imagine a different situation, because people will say, but what else? How can we do it otherwise? How can I care for another person if compassionate people are not caring people? Okay, let's imagine another situation. Or rather, it's the same situation. I feel bad, I'm sick, but there is a loving person next to me. A loving person, because the best care is indeed love. You know, I would say as the following: why else this question arises? Why is it so difficult for us sometimes to understand what true care is? We don't understand how to properly care for another person, because we have no idea how to care of ourselves. We don't know how to take care of ourselves, and we don't understand what true self-care is. Like I said, the best care is love. When a loving person is near us, we feel most comfortable, don't we? And if we talk about true love, it's always a very peaceful state. You know, I would say that as an indicator whether you experience love, fear, or anxiety. This indicator is actually your inner state. A calm, deep, genuine inner state is the indicator that you really experience love.
I have a question about relationships. This genuine self-care. I'm talking precisely about self-care now and the state of love, because I think there are those who will not understand.
Yes, how to take care of oneself with love.
Yeah, you know, that's the state of love, and especially that emphasis that you put on loving God. That's the true self-care is.
Yes, exactly, self-care, of course. You know, if we say that the best care is love, then true love is God. That's why there is no better self-care than to be in uninterrupted, constant connection with God, the most loving, the kindest, the wisest, and the most caring. And this connection is possible because we have a soul. But who is we? Who has this connection? The true self, me as personality, as a spirit. It is me who has this connection with God. And I'm the one who can feel this flow of love, this better care that comes from the spiritual world, through the soul to me, to personality. But not to that personality which is described in psychology and has sort of three components of self, whatever, an image, a certain image. No, but to me as a true personality, as a spirit.
Wait, this is actually one of the important aspects of understanding care as a phenomenon. After all, even the factors that you've listed and the way we perceive care in general, those are some external actions and external conditions, education, clothing, food, and so on and so forth. That is, people think of it all as care, that is, care of some bodily, physical needs. But the understanding that my true self is a spirit. It changes
The understanding changes completely.
the meaning of
Absolutely.
actions. Depending on what kind of shoes your child is going to wear, or what kind of kindergarten, or okay, let's expand, because care is not just a matter of child-parent relationship, or it's about the elderly, or it's about your neighbors, but it's also about other people and so on. It's not always, let's say, having your parent or your relative placed in a good clinic, and people think, so if I put him in a good clinic with good doctors, that's I've taken care of him. But at the same time, I didn't ask him if he wanted that or not. Maybe for him it's like a penal servitude.
You know, Sasha, there is another very important point here, and I believe that here is where the confusion is. First of all, it's all about what you and I are discussing now, the material well-being, facilities of any level. They do not make a person happy. That's why those benchmarks, I started with this point. When parents come and say, our child has everything, but he's not happy, we see that he's unhappy. And it's a very clear criterion whether we are taking good care of him. Is it the way we treat a person really helping them to
There's
be
also
happier?
this, did we give him everything?
Yes, did we give
Can
him
you tell us
everything?
what else we gave short to this little?
Yeah, that's exactly how it sounds. And you know, we already have so many facts, and we know very well that no amount of material wealth can make a person happy. I will give you just one of these facts. The highest suicide rate, the highest rate of depression among young people, among adolescents, has always been and is still in the most developed countries. That's it. It seems to me that we can put a period here, and we don't even discuss this topic anymore. But you know where the misunderstanding arises. After all, you and I proceed from the knowledge, true knowledge about a human being, which psychology does not talk about. And that is why, of course, this facet remains unknown to most people. That is why I suggest that we look at suffering and care from a habitual perspective. Now I said that suffering consists of three emotions, three very strong negative emotions: fear, anger, and sadness. Always. It is always like this. We are either worried about someone or not, but we are always in these emotions. Let's break this down, understand why. What is the true source of these emotions, where they come from? Look, why do I say that suffering always includes fear? When we see a person who is sick, a person who's suffering, what kind of fear emerges in us?
That I will be in his place.
Right, the same thing could happen to me, right? So how does this fear emerge? Fear is an emotion. How does it appear? We get pictures in our head. I see myself in this person's place. I see myself in the same situation. And a thought emerges. God forbid I will experience anything like that. I don't want to. I won't cope with that. Thank God it's not happening to me, right? It's fear, but fear is a consequence of what I have imagined, or rather what has gone through my mind with all these pictures and thoughts. There is also another side of fear which manifests itself when we see someone suffering, for example. If it's my child who's sick or someone dear to me, a fear arises in me that I won't be able to cope with this situation. I'm the best mom, I'm the best parent. Doesn't matter, a wife, a husband, just some relative, doesn't matter. But there is this fear again. About what? About the image. The made-up image of myself, the perfect. I
Fear
am
about the
better.
image, right?
Yes, exactly. Fear, the fear of losing this image, because what kind of thoughts do we have? What will people think about me? What they will say about what kind of mother I am? How will I live with this? What will happen to me if, some misfortune happens? See, the key point is me. What will happen to me? How would I live, and so on? So, friends, I suggest that we always remember that any suffering is always very selfish. Just look, I've listed the fears, the fear of what people would think about me, fear about how I would look in other people's eyes, fear that what would happen to me. Where are the worries for another person? That's point number
Also,
one.
the most interesting thing here is the idea, if it happens to me, you don't often hear this from other people in a conversation, but it's still great that there are people who talk about it openly, acknowledging that I'm taking care of my elderly parents today in the hope that my children will take care of me.
Of me, yes, yes.
That's it. This is the goal of selfish goal. The selfish goal is still ahead of us. The trouble is that people do not always articulate it, but if you are honest with yourself, first of all with yourself, well, as it is said, the rest is a personal matter. The egoism is pursued in everything, even relations, built on pseudo-care. I specifically say pseudo-care. Why? Because that's how everything was just said here. Me about me and about me, because those are manipulative as well. After all, what do? Let's go back to the situation where you're worried about somebody. The person came in and you start emotionally scolding them. You're so and so. Where you have been? I was worried, sick in here. I have wept all my tears. I've already called everyone. Well, you ungrateful haven't even fallen to your feet and haven't repented. That is by this behavior we have a man who in the first place asked for another crime, not sobbing nor involving, I do not know, nor aviation or intelligence for countries in order to find him. He's starting to feel what? Feelings of guilt. So the next time, and they say this person will think, why did you go? Why didn't you warn me? And these are manipulative relationships that are actually based on a personal gain that is all in America of consumerism. They keep multiplying and no one wants to stop them. And do they turn it to specialists to follow and tell me what I'm doing wrong that he doesn't want to do?
Sasha, you see, you just voiced the emotion, the second emotion that is included in suffering, anger. But where is love here? Because many people are indignant. How can a suffering person can have anger towards someone who is suffering? Yes, guys, that's what it looks like. It's a solid complaint. Let's also think about how it sounds in our heads. So why do I need this right now? Why is it happening right now? Why is she or he is sick right now, broke his arm up to the point that why should
there's a really neat one. How could you do this to me?
Yeah, sure.
He just got sick.
Yes, it's a complaint. I wanted to go on vacation, just lie on the couch or read a book, but I have to serve these pills by schedule, go to the doctors and sit next to you. These thoughts do flash in our mind. You observe them. Is this real love? Is this care? This emotion, aggression, irritation, it's actually the same thing. And what is there to be happy about when I'm angry, when I'm in fear, when I see another person suffering? There is certainly more than enough discouragement about how miserable I am. And there is also thoughts about how miserable I am, Sasha. But the most important thing right now is not the reason that someone is sick. The reason is not that someone is suffering. The emotion of fear, the emotion of anger, the emotion of irritation are the outcomes of the thoughts which we hear in our heads and which we agree with. That's all. This is also a very important point because what you've said is really a complaint. My hair has turned completely gray because of this child. I have no strength. My heart aches because he does one thing and then another thing's no. The child may not always do what we expect from him or think he should do in the right way, but it's the matter of choice. How do we approach this? And once again, I would like to say that the criteria or the measure, the indicator is that you're in love, is that you are in a calm state, not just an outward mask, but your deep inner calm state. I have quite a lot of experience of observation over impatient babies and mothers who are lying together with them in the hospital. And there's such a difference when a mother is all anxious and worried, she disturbs the entire hospital department and doesn't leave anyone alone. And the child becomes sicker and sicker. And there is another mother who is next to her. She understands that her child is sick. That's it. We have to undergo such and such procedures, treatment, and take care of him. And she just follows the instructions, and the child recovers very, very soon because the condition is completely different.
Again,
Опять же,
anticipating some possible questions, it would also be interesting to understand the following. Okay, we figured it out. There are personal interests, and yes, there is a desire to manipulate, to control another person, agreed. But then how to care in a good way? I don't know, genuinely, truly, without manipulating a person. Is there any guidance, so to speak?
Well, you asked the question exactly the way it is usually asked. How should I do it differently? Even with a demand, just write down a guideline for me for every specific situation.
Point by point.
Yes, point by point. There is some algorithm. Give me this algorithm. But Sasha, it's no accident that I keep telling you over and over again that the best care is love. Love is not just always calm. But as we already talked about it, the source of love is the spiritual world. It is the world of God. It is also the highest wisdom. And that's just something that triggers some resistance against it. There is no algorithm when I'm experiencing love, when I'm in love. I come into contact with such wisdom and clarity, and I just understand what I should do. Here I can say that a person who's suffering doesn't understand what to do, poorly understands. He really doesn't understand what to do. He forgets to give some medication or follow the procedure. Why? Because he's focused on himself, and also there is fear, irritation, sadness. Those are very strong emotions. Extremely strong. So when a person is in such a state, even in his brain, there is this center of emotions. It is so active that it doesn't allow the brain to function in a proper way, because the parts of the brain, the regions of the brain that are usually turned on when a person is able to think about some situation, analyze it, understand how to act in the best way in a particular situation. You see, we can see that a suffering person is stupid in a certain sense. He doesn't understand what to do. So it's also a worst form of help. But when a person is in love, in calmness, he has clarity, he has a very comprehensive vision of the situation. He is easily capable of making any decision. So the whole question is, not how do I properly care, but how do I ensure that I'm in love all the time? And the answer to this question, you won't find it in the books on psychology and psychiatry. It is just not there, because psychology and psychiatry books have excluded the existence of the soul in a person. A soulless person is incapable of love. That's why we are confused. But in the books by Anastasia Novych and the videos with Igor Mikhailovich Danilov, there is this answer. There is the answer to how to come to true love. Who is a true human? There is the knowledge about the dual nature of a human, about how we can control our state, how to get to know God, how to be in a continuous, uninterrupted relationship with Him. This is the knowledge which should underline everything, even physics and mathematics, and in particular psychology, because without this knowledge we cannot understand what happens to us. Without knowing the dual nature of human beings, we cannot protect a person from mental disorders without a connection with God. We cannot do this. Without this knowledge, we live in today's society which is filled with mental disorders, resentment, hatred, wars, conflict, suffering, and endless problems, invented problems, because we have forgotten that we have a soul. And the most important thing we have to learn is to love. Because this knowledge makes us a true human, a loving being. So, I would even say that if we don't talk about the soul and God today, all topics and discussions on psychology can be just closed. We won't come to any answer or any understanding, you see? So we have probably come to the stage when we need to reconsider the criteria. What is a normal human? Because it's not normal for a person, for a human to be in suffering. It's not normal for a human to be beyond this connection with God. So when questions arise, how do I take care of another person? How do I properly care of another person? How do I not suffer? How do I protect myself and my loved ones from mental disorders? How can I be a normal, true person? I hear questions like this as well. They already pop up in people's minds. And here is one answer. We should learn to love God. That's it. And then we will know the answer to any other question.
Good psychology or psychotherapy, I don't know what to call it. Simple, easy to understand, without all those whimsical definitions and things like that. But it's still very practical. You know, you can learn a lot of terms and concepts, but know and understand nothing about what's going on with you and who you really are.
What is the existence of a human himself? Well, let's take even the most material person. He just lives in the system, doesn't believe in anything. He's under absolute control, like a biorobot, with anger, hatred, and aggression towards entire humanity and everything holy. Yet, pardon me, he has a soul, and he has a personality. And why does he have this? Owing to the Holy Spirit. Because it's exactly he who gives life. He gives an understanding to personality that this exists. However, in this case, if a person is a beast, then the person is surely guided more by what the system gives him, directives, programs, and manipulations. But at least he exists owing to Allah and the Holy Spirit. However, he still has a chance to just go ahead and begin to live. Well, isn't that so? To break the vicious circle and come out of submission, out of slavery, everything is simple.
The issue of care is very closely intertwined with the question of responsibility and initiative. Really, when a person understands who he really is, what kind of being he is, who in him wants what, and who in him is responsible, what function consciousness has, what function I have as personality, what spirit needs for development, what consciousness needs for development, then all of these tricky questions come from our curious consciousness, from our mind, like, tell me this, tell me that, oh, I did this, I sent him to a better country, I sent him to the best doctors, I don't know, found the best teachers, and so on. This all takes away the main understanding that one does to not have, that everyone is primarily responsible for one's own actions. Secondly, is that you as a human being have no right to violate another person's right to choose. If you are not asked to care, keep your care to yourself. If you really understand who you are, if you understand your spiritual, divine nature and essence, and you have the desire to care, because every human being has it, then you will do it unselfishly, and you will not expect anything in return. And when you not expect nothing in return, there are no claims, no accusations, and there are no worries. And then such care, if it is perceived by the person, it is perceived naturally. And likewise, if it is rejected, you still perceive it easily, too. Because it was your initiative. You wanted to do something, to help, to suggest something. It doesn't matter if it was a material action. To help cross the street, to help come in, to water flowers, to ask how are you, to buy some groceries, or to help an elderly woman climb a few stairs. This is your initiative, and you are responsible for it. And in the same way, the other person has the right to refuse your help. And An old lady can say, "No, son, thank you. I don't want to. I'll carry the bags myself." And that is your right to choose. It doesn't mean that you are bad. It doesn't mean that you do not know how to care, because the main vector and your main task is to be responsible for yourself and your life and your development.
Spiritual development, such as spiritual development. If we talk about true care, we discussed this in the beginning, we started from this. The main care we have is for physical body, intellectual development. However, our main care should be about spiritual development. While spiritual development means to be in a state of love, that's it. And we still come to this. We come to this anyway. If I'm in a state of love and my child is growing in such an atmosphere, he sees that this is the most important thing, then everything will be fine all the time.
Thank you very much. It was incredibly pleasant to meet you, to talk to you, to hear that, after all, psychology has a chance with such an approach, a human approach. And friends, thank you for your questions. And we are going out again. So please post your questions, write your comments under the video. And thank you and have a good time.
Look inside yourself. Do you really doubt that there is God? You don't. Don't you want to live? You do want to. And now move away from this, get distracted, and such a mass of various affairs will appear that you won't even have time for God. When will I do that? Later. I'll go to church on Easter and light a candle. Isn't that so? And who is the liar? God never lies, and prophets never lied, while Satan always lies. Such is his function, just like all of us do. We are people, we use consciousness, meaning these imps, therefore we ourselves are like that. And we evaluate everyone. By the same criteria, there is such a... In ancient times they said, the one who sees a slave in a person is a slave himself. The one who sees a liar in a person is himself a liar. The one who sees a human in a person is a human. This is the truth indeed.
Here, a parallel is drawn to that egoists actually think that you don't know life, or you probably look for a profit in something. But when you encounter a different point of view of those people who sincerely act, those who share their joy, they say that at the moments when these events take place,
yes, when connection arises,
they feel that they live.
Right.
That's the most important thing.
And tell me, my friends, what can be more valuable than this inner connection, than true, sincere love, than life? An inner peace. Peace. Not just peace, but peace in love, in infinity. What can be more wonderful when spiritual practice really takes place? After all, spiritual practice does not necessarily mean to stand on one's knees, to hit the floor with one's forehead, to light a lot of candles and mumble nobody knows what. Spiritual practice is an open heart. It's a wide open gate of the soul, of one person before another. And when God is with us, that's exactly what spiritual practice is. When God's love is in you, that's what spiritual practice is. And when you direct your entire love, true love, not to what is external, but directed inside, and you feel how this flame revives in you with new power, when it increases to such an extent that you want to embrace the whole world. When even in the one who is the enemy of all humankind, you feel an unprotected personality and the unfulfilled angel, and you feel sorry for him. That's what practice is. And not window dressing, outward show and theatricality. Right? Everything is simple, friends. Genuine, true love. A person's love for God. A child's love for his Creator. Only this love can revive what our consciousness cannot comprehend. Yet love can create what is immortal from what is mortal. From merely a fantasy, it can really create a part of the spiritual world. This is wonderful, friends, and this is worth fighting for. Isn't it? What can be stronger than this feeling? What can you compare it to? Tell me, please. Well, perhaps. Let's digress. Only when enormous hatred for someone seizes you.
Oh, there is no desire to digress at all.
It's an object of love. What are words needed for? When we have the soul, while the soul is from one source, and in fact, we as personalities are from the same source. Everything is very simple, friends. You know, there is a lot I wanted to say, clarify and explain to you. But will words, whatever they are, actually say more than the essence itself says? Friends of mine, let's just love each other. Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you, Igor Mikhailovich.
Thanks to everyone.
It's a great gift. Thank you.
You know, I still think this video is not for everyone, but for our true friends. Thank you for being with us.